Okay, well, it's 11:02 and the clicking in has slowed down. I see 75 participants, which actually means more than that because some of you I know are not alone on your screen. So welcome. Thank you for all that you do for St. Paul's. Thank you for your participation and your commitment to St. Paul's. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. Uh, I've got a list of several topics that I want to just give an update on about where we are and where we think we're going in 2021. One of them we've already hinted at during the service when we commissioned our new vestry. We have 3 new vestry members. We now have a vestry of 10 because we are in the midst of a transition from 3-year terms to 4-year terms. We have a vestry of 10. Historically, we've had 12. We're going to build back up over the next couple of years. And our new senior warden for the year is Margaret Mormon, who has just completed a year as junior warden and is now in her 3rd year as a member of the vestry. And so I have asked Margaret, as your new senior warden, to greet you, say good morning, and to open our conversation with prayer.
So good morning. I think we have quite a year ahead of us, really full of exciting prospects. And we are, as I think we all know, we're blessed at St. Paul's with such thoughtful and devoted leadership in our clergy and staff and in our vestry. And it is a privilege for me to be your senior warden in the year 2021. And I'm deeply grateful for and mindful of the trust that's been placed in me. So please join me in prayer. Holy and loving God, in you we live and move and have our being. We pray for our beloved church, St. Paul's Memorial, for our fellow parishioners, and for all those touched by our ministries. We pray for our clergy and staff, and today especially we pray for our newly installed vestry and wardens. We pray for the year ahead with all its bright promise and exhilarating challenges, placing all our hopes and ideas and actions in your hands, in your mercy and your grace. Loving God, so draw our hearts to you, so guide our minds, so fill our imaginations, so direct our wills, that we may be wholly yours, entirely dedicated to you, and then use us, we pray, as you will, and always for the unfolding of your love and for the welfare of your people. In the name of your incarnate love, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Margaret. And thank you to all our new vestry. So I've got a list of topics. A couple of them are associated with some video or photographs that we're going to share with you. I'm trying to make my screen look right, but I can't quite get there. So I guess I'll just forge ahead. The big question, well, let me say before I get into the content, let me say that we will have some time for question and answer after I've run through my topics that I want to update you on. And the best way to handle that is going to be to use the Q&A feature and in the bottom of your screen rather than the chat. So at the bottom of your screen across the underneath the pictures, you should see several features, and one of them says Q&A. And if you click that, you can type in a question. I cannot promise you that we're going to get to every question this morning, but we'll do our best. I'm going to try to leave plenty of time, but we will need to finish by noon at the latest. And we will record even the questions that may not get answered on this webinar. We will record the questions and not sure exactly what, but we will know that they have been asked, and we will seek ways to communicate about them either in this format in the future or in some other way. So if your question isn't answered on this call, it doesn't mean that it's gone into a black hole. So let's begin with the first big question of the year, which is what's going to happen with vaccinations and testing and what we hope and pray will be the end of COVID restrictions. Naturally, as you know, neither I nor the bishop nor anybody in the church has any more concrete detail about the timing of those developments than anybody else. But what I would want you to know at St. Paul's is that the vestry and the staff and the leadership have been operating because we needed to put a pin in the calendar and say, how do we plan? How do we plan to go back to normal? We don't want to wait for the governor or the bishop and then say, okay, next week, here we go. So we have been operating from a programmatic planning perspective and from a budgetary perspective on the sort of working guesswork assumption that we will be open for business in a way that looks very much like normal in the fall. So that may or may not come to pass, but that's the framework that we're working with, is that we will be gathered in the church in person in August or September, something like that, roughly fall semester. We're fortunate at St. Paul's in that the summer, we're tied enough to the university schedule that the summer gives us some leeway, but that's what we're working with. A couple of things that are on the calendar prior to then that I want to remind you of, and that you should know. One is that the vestry, you will recall, had authorized funding to create a new full-time clergy position for last year, to start the summer of 2020, and we pulled the plug on that search about a year ago because we felt that we were not equipped to do a healthy and whole interview process and to invite a newly ordained person into ministry and into our community in the virtual world that we were all just getting used to. And so we were also concerned about 2020 finances, and we wanted to so the money that was allocated for the second half of 2020, if you think back to a year ago when we had no idea what the pandemic was going to do to our financial situation, we wanted to put that back in general budget as a caution, which we did, as you know, and as we have celebrated, St. Paul's is in a very strong financial position. That is thanks to all of you for continuing to pledge, for paying your pledges, for giving generously, for overpaying your pledges. So the vestry in the 2021 budget reallocated, just essentially delayed that thing for 1 year. So we do anticipate calling a new full-time member of our clergy staff and probably a newly ordained person to St. Paul's to begin in the summertime. Many applications have been received. We are in the early processes of sorting them and calling together a group of parishioners to participate in an interview process. So that is something that we anticipate taking place early in the summer. And then the second thing that is unusual this year, this may be one of the last things that gets juggled around during the 1 year plus of pandemic life at St. Paul's, but we have now confirmed a Shrine Mount weekend parish retreat weekend for Labor Day weekend, not Monday, but Friday through Sunday as we usually have done, but Labor Day, because we believe that there is a very good chance that the difference between the middle of July and Labor Day could be significant in terms of gathering, in terms of Shrine Mount opening, in terms of dining together, in terms of all kinds of activities that make our Shrine Mount weekend fun. So this is going to be a sort of a trial. We'll see how this goes. We're going to do it because of COVID, and we're going to see what we think of this Labor Day retreat. It has a couple of unexpected benefits that we hope to take advantage of. One is that our students will be back at the university in residence, and we hope many students will be able to join us, which has not typically been the case with our July weekend. So that could be a silver lining to the change. And the other thing that Shrinemont pointed out, some of the Shrinemont staff pointed out to us when we were discussing this possibility, is that the food gets even better later in the summer because it's much more local produce in the kitchen at Shrinemont by the time you get to August and September. So more details on that coming up, but that's where we are. We have moved Shrinemont from July to Labor Day. We are hiring a new priest, or potentially a deacon, or someone newly ordained or about to be ordained in the summertime. When we get back to the building, when we are reopening, whether that's in August or September, some things will be different, as you know. I know you know these things intellectually. I'm not sure you know them intuitively yet, because many of you have not been in or around our building in a long time. But you will recall that we, after a lot of deliberation, that the vestry decided to proceed with asbestos abatement in the church school building. And that work is now complete. And I'm going to ask John to show us some pictures so that everybody can understand the significance of that development, because we will have space that is no longer usable in the same way that it used to be. So here is a recent video of the second floor, the middle floor of the church school wing. So throughout the building, you can see floor tiles have been removed because those floor tiles were asbestos. That's bare concrete. And you can see that the ceiling has been removed. On the ground floor, because Chancellor Street Preschool had paid for some asbestos removal some years ago, the ground floor retains the possibility of for not much expense, we could make use of some of that ground floor space. The intention, and the vestry's intention in authorizing this work to go ahead and allocating the funding for this work to go ahead, was that we would not put back new floors and ceilings in that building as we look forward to the probability of demolition and replacement of that space. So that has a few different implications for our life in the fall. One is that your staff are busily working on creative possibilities for the 11 o'clock hour, for adult formation, for Sunday school, for youth group. We're going to be spending a lot more time in closer quarters, and that is not something that we merely need to accommodate, but I think something we can celebrate, and something that the staff is thinking creatively about. So I don't want anybody to think that when we get back in the fall, it's going to be the same as it was before, because it's not. We will continue to have robust and joyful opportunities for fellowship and learning for all ages, but without spending time in the top two floors of the church school wing. So that brings me to our building and capital project. And I'll just give a brief update on where those two committees stand. Many of you will recall that we have a capital campaign exploration committee, which is chaired by Steve Bevis, who's a member of the vestry. And they were charged back well before Christmas, early in the fall. They were charged with essentially finding a campaign consultant for us. And so that group has been at work throughout the fall, and they have narrowed their search from 6 initial candidates, fundraising capital campaign consultant firms of different sizes and different strengths and different emphases, have narrowed it to 2. And we will be conducting some sort of in-depth interview and evaluation of those 2 firms, and hope to have an announcement about which one we will retain in the coming months. And the building group which consists of 3 architects and an engineer, and Christy Thomas. So Jody Lehendro, Rachel Lloyd, Beth Meyer, Pat Punch, and Christy Thomas, with participation also from me and John Reed. That group was charged similarly on a sort of parallel track with finding an architecture and engineering firm to do a master plan for us for the work to come. And that has been an exciting process. We now have the deadline for the initial response from firms to express their interests has just passed. We have not begun the evaluation of those submissions, but we have 8 of them. We have 8 submissions from firms, both local and regional, who I haven't looked at them in depth yet. The deadline is just passed, but I can tell you it's exciting to see how excited architecture and engineering firms are about the prospect of working at St. Paul's because of our unique location, our unique potential. So that process is underway, and you'll be hearing more about that as well. So we are looking for a priest, we're looking for an architect, and we're looking for a campaign consultant, and all of that work continues apace and will continue into the spring. You will also remember, many of you, that as part of our aspiration to restore our historic building, we are anticipating restoration of our historic organ. I have said this before, but I don't want anyone to ever forget it. What is wonderful and unique about our organ is that, unlike almost any other church organ of its caliber in the region, our organ was designed and built with and for our building. They are thoroughly integrated, which is why our organ sounds so good. So we are thinking of the building restoration and the organ restoration as of a piece. But once COVID hit and we realized we would be out of our building for a while, and we realized that the organ restoration firm that we wanted to work with had a hole in their calendar for 2021, we decided that the time to strike was while the iron was hot. And so the organ restoration, I'm excited to tell you, has just begun. In the last few days, the Thompson Allen Company from Connecticut has been at St. Paul's. They have begun dismantling some parts of our organ. And you may have seen in the chat field on the service a few minutes ago, at the end of the service during the postlude, Deke put in the chat that that postlude was the last piece that he recorded with the full organ. So the plan for organ restoration, you don't need to retain all the details, but there's a couple of big points that I really would love for everyone to be aware of. The plan for the restoration is to restore one half of the organ and then the other half. So there will not be a time when it is completely unplayable, but there will be a period of many months and maybe over a year when it will not be fully playable. So the work has begun on the one side. And when that is done and we have a new console, which will probably be sometime in the fall, then they'll remove the other side. The organ, for those of you who don't know, actually lives up in the walls behind what look like organ pipes, but are actually just decorative above where the choir sits. There are thousands of pipes up in those chambers. And when we say one side and the other side, or one half and the other half, we literally mean the half that's over on the pulpit side and the half that's over on the lectern side. So that has just begun. You might ask astutely, how has that begun when the capital campaign has not begun? And again, the answer is that this was the time to do this work because the firm that we wanted to restore the organ had availability to do it. So we had anticipated delaying that work until after our campaign was a little further along. But we are extraordinarily fortunate at St. Paul's to have the financial flexibility to begin to finance this project and make these payments before the campaign has really begun in earnest. So please know that any money that is spent in terms of payments on the organ restoration will ultimately be accounted against the capital campaign that has essentially yet to begin. So when you make that gift, you will be contributing to the building restoration and the new building and the organ restoration all at once. Some exciting news on the organ is that as long as 2 years ago, I think, Deke, in working with with Thompson Allen, who's the organ builder that we're dealing with, had come up with a sort of wish list of all the pipes that would be needed to not only restore the original organ that was there in 1926, but to fulfill the vision of E.M. Skinner, who designed the organ and left some holes. So when our organ was was built and installed in 1926 or 27, there were some stops, some sets of pipes that were not installed, but they were clearly in the design with the intention that they would be filled in later. And that will now happen. So Deke and the organ builder got together and put together this wish list in the hope that we would find vintage pipes to fulfill that original vision that E.M. Skinner, the master organ builder, had for our organ. The idea being that ultimately, when we get down to the end of this project and we have essentially a brand new 1926 organ, all of our original pipes would be fully restored and revoiced and reinstalled. And then the ones that we didn't have we would hope to find vintage pipes to fill those holes. And if we couldn't, then those pipes would have to be fabricated according to the original specifications. So Deke has been collecting vintage pipes, essentially, with the help of Thompson Allen for a couple of years now. We now own a bunch of them. And the list of pipes that we are likely to need to have fabricated is dwindling. The reason I'm telling you all this is that we have recently discovered a trove of perfectly historically appropriate vintage Skinner organ pipes in a house in Connecticut that is going to be demolished. And so we have some pictures. There is a house circled in Pine Orchard, Connecticut. And in that house is a 1920s era Skinner organ. That house has been sold. The new owners, believe it or not, don't want a 1920s Skinner organ in their house. And they have wonderfully, graciously, generously decided to donate their antique Skinner organ pipes to us so that they may have new life as part of our organ. So that work, there's the organ in the house. I'm not sure how many of these pictures we have. That's the console, which we will not have. We're going to have a new console, but those are some of the pipes that we need to complete the vision for our organ, and they have and don't want. So that it was just been a wonderful development. We have bought some sets of vintage pipes in the last couple of years from other churches and from, believe it or not, vintage organ pipe dealers. But these pipes have been donated to us by the folks who bought that house in Connecticut. So that's where we are with building campaign, capital campaign, organ restoration, space reconfiguration for the fall, hiring a new priest, and going to Shrinemont. And that covers my list of topics. So I'm going to ask Parish Administrator John Reed, who is the man behind the Zoom curtain, to open up the Q&A and let me know what else we should cover this morning.
So I'm going to be like the Wizard of Oz here. I'm going to talk from behind the curtain. So there was originally a question about the organ restoration and whether we would be reinstalling the pipes that were removed in the 1980s, but I think you covered that, but you might want to just reiterate the answer.
Yeah, well, I've probably covered it. I've probably covered it well enough for the people who understand the question, but the the history of our organ is that a fair number of there's Deke, fair number, I should have just called on Deke to answer this. A fair number of the original pipes had been removed. And fortunately, they were not given away or sold. They were retained and we owned them all along. Those pipes were fully restored. Our original pipes that had been out of use were fully restored by Thompson Allen last year and reinstalled. And so those pipes have been in use already. And I'm sure Deke probably
Alice?
is aware of the things that the nuances that I'm not catching. Oh, Deke says exactly. So I did pretty well on that one. So those pipes have been restored and reinstalled. And thank goodness that they were never given away or sold. So that is still part of the plan. When we reach the end of this process, the organ will include every original pipe that it ever had, I think, and maybe with a handful of exceptions, I'm not sure. No, Deke says yes, as well as a bunch of other vintage pipes from other organs that were built by the same organ builder at the same era. And then it will include a small number, we still believe it will include a small number of newly fabricated pipes made to the original specifications.
Okay, I am told that the other Wizard of Oz wants me on the screen. So
Okay.
so the next question I would love
Good
for
thing
you
you
to
ironed your
answer
shirt, John.
is what is the job description for the new clergy person?
So the job posting, I wonder if it's still up. It might be down because the deadline is passed. I would refer you to the diocesan website. It's possible they haven't taken it down yet, but I can tell you that the job is designed with the newly ordained person in mind. So it has built into it, and this is all clear in the job posting, the expectation that somebody would be with us from the time of their ordination for something like 2 or 3 years. And that during that time, we would offer an intentional program of mentoring. The idea being that the staff and I will get together and look at the sort of seasons of the coming years and think about times of emphasis. So in other words, to have the person spend some period of months working closely with Peyton to learn everything they can learn about children and youth and mission and service, and that the person would spend some chunk of time working closely with John to learn about budgets and administration and finance, working with Mark and learning about chaplaincy, and all the while participating in preaching and liturgical leadership. Those would be the rotating elements. And then the piece of the job that we anticipate, all of this is a little flexible depending on the person's background and the person's strengths. But the part of the job that we anticipate as being sort of the through line throughout the person's time at St. Paul's would involve the coordination of pastoral care, leadership and pastoral care. Not that that person becomes the only one who calls and visits, but that person is the one who has the whole picture of who's calling and visiting whom and helps to supervise that system, including lay visiting and lay pastoral care. And then the other piece of it has to do with, and I think of this actually as a subset of pastoral care, is parish-wide fellowship, intergenerational fellowship, planning and coordinating those kinds of events with intention. That relates to our identity as worshiping and spiritual community. So that's the outline. That's what you would find if you were to look that job description up. And as I said, it's flexible depending on who we get, what they're good at, and what they want to do. But the big picture idea is that if we're intentional about that kind of formation and mentoring, that we would be in a position after 2 or 3 years of that kind of experience. There it is. Thanks, Lloyd and Sheila. So if you click on that, you'll see that job posting on the diocesan website. the intention is that a few years of that experience at a growing, healthy church like St. Paul's, and the person is well prepared to go out and succeed as a rector someplace. Which, if we can pull that off, will be a great gift to the church, because many folks out of seminary go to work for a rector for a couple of years, and the job description consists of whatever the rector doesn't feel like doing, and then they go off to be the rector someplace, and they've got a narrower experience that might be helpful. So if this works, it's something that we can all be proud of. But thank you for asking, and thank you, Lloyd and Sheila, for finding that and putting it up.
Okay, the next question, and we've got a couple on this topic, is about Shrinemont, and it is, are we giving up our July weekend for good by making it Labor Day weekend this year?
No. We've had quite a bit of conversation with Shrinemont about this, and a couple of things are working in our favor in terms of flexibility. One is unfortunate, which is that, okay, I'm getting a lot of people saying they don't see Sheila and Lloyd's post. There it is. Thanks, Laura. The unfortunate piece of it is that Shrinemont had so many cancellations that their whole traditional schedule has been thrown up in the air because of all the cancellations from last year, including cancellations into this year. Which means that they have a lot of flexibility, and many of the weekend availabilities that have been sort of sewn up for years on end in the past are no longer sewn up. So I expect that system is going to need to stay open and flexible for a while before it, if it does, kind of lock back into new traditions. Another advantage that we have, and this again is thanks to the whole parish. Many of you will remember that last year we gave Shrinemont a gift that amounted to, and by we I mean some out of St. Paul's budget and some directly from you parishioners, a gift which came pretty darn close to matching what they would have made on our regular weekend. I don't mind tooting not my own horn, but our own horn on this one. What many churches did instead of what we did was just to call up and say, sorry, we're not coming. And Shrinemont got nothing out of those people. What that means is that they now know that we love them and they love us. And so I expect that after this Labor Day experiment, we will still have some flexibility as far as what we will do in 2022. But we thought for this year, we thought this was a good solution because it has the greatest chance of Shrinemont having the greatest openness.
So as a follow-up question, will one of our newer parishioners, and there've been a number since COVID started, is asking whether there's a limit on the number of people we allow to go to Shrinemont.
Historically, we've had to take a guess at how many we reserve for, and then if more people sign up, we just call them up and get more rooms and cram in. So we hope never to limit it. If the intention of the question is about COVID limitations, it's just impossible for us to know what that will be first weekend in September. But as I've said, the reason for delaying is in the hope that there will be little or no limitations on gathering at that time, or certainly that we'll have the better shot at fewer limitations than we would earlier in the summer. I hope that answers the question. We hope not to limit it at all. We hope that anybody that wants to come will be able to come.
Okay, so we have a question. This one I'm going to read to you. I wonder if you can speak to any plans for augmenting communications with parishioners, especially through the website, including information about programming, vestry minutes, committee members' names, approved vestry members. Thank you.
Sure. Two-part answer. One, the first part is that we have spent a lot of time as a staff lately talking about communications. And one of the things that we've noticed, and maybe the person asking the question has noticed, is that is that COVID has cut back our interactions. We don't have verbal announcements in church. We don't run into each other. We don't have that sort of double dip of where you get the newsletter and then you sit down in the pew Sunday and you see some of the same stuff in the yellow sheet to reinforce it. One of the principles of church communication that's kind of funny but also true is, and has been researched to death, believe it or not, is how many times do you have to tell people before they know what it is that you've said? And the answer is a lot more than one. So we have talked about how to respond, given that our regular communication with the parish now is largely restricted to the newsletter. One of the things on the horizon, we hope, and I don't want to make a timeline promise on this because it involves some technological changes and it involves staff time. But one of the things that we are looking forward to experimenting with is how to customize communications for different groups of parishioners, so that it's not just the catch-all of the newsletter, but how we might have subgroups for people involved in different ministries. That's the first answer. So I don't know how satisfactory that is. The first answer is we're aware of the issue, we're thinking about it, and we hope to make changes and make improvements in the future. The second answer, which is particularly about the website, is, I would say, somewhat moving in the other direction, in that our new website was really designed pretty firmly on the basis of the principle that the parish website is primarily for visitors, for church shoppers, for newcomers, that it's not the place for parishioners to go and find detailed information. A couple of reasons for that, and in case you think it's just laziness, the first part of one answer is this. One answer is that if you go out and look on parish websites, if you find websites that have things like the schedule for the lectors, or have the minutes from a meeting or whatever, 90% of those websites you're going to find are out of date, because there's hardly a parish in the world that has the staff to keep all that kind of thing updated. And we certainly don't. Second part of that answer, which is probably more important, is actually just a data-driven, research-based fact, which is the large parishes in the Episcopal Church, the churches that are much larger than St. Paul's and have the money to do this kind of thing, have hired people like Google to analyze who visits their website. And the simple, irrefutable fact is that the vast majority of visitors to any church website are not, in fact, parishioners. The vast majority of visitors are people. Well, we don't know exactly what they're doing. We hope that they're curious about coming to church or getting involved, but they're not parishioners. And if you're Google, you can figure that out and report it. And if you're a huge church with a huge communications budget, you can hire Google to do that. So we know that, and so that kind of information has driven some of the decisions that we've made about communications in terms of who is the audience for what. We've got a newsletter and we know who that audience is. We've got a website, and we have more information about who that audience is than we used to. We've got a signboard on the corner of University Avenue and Chancellor Street, and we think we know who that audience is. It's whoever's walking by. So our various communication tools have different audiences. And so I'm definitely open to creative thinking about how to get parishioners the information that they need. Everything we know about church communications is that the parish website is not the best tool for that.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions along the theme of what will be included in the capital improvements. As far as, are we going to work on the infrastructure like the boiler and the electrical system? Are we planning to refresh the parish hall and the nave? What are the plans for the kitchen and the parish hall? That type of question.
Okay. So this question gets into, it gets to some issues that are exciting for me to think about, and then I have to hold myself back because some of those questions are for the architects that we eventually hire. But I can give you the basics. The basic vision that we will share with the architects in the interview process and throughout the process is that we want to do, and it's time to do, in fact, it's past time, to do a thorough, high quality renovation of our entire 1926 building. So that includes the nave, that includes the parish hall, it includes the library and lounge and the spaces above and below. It includes the kitchen space, which may or may not remain as kitchen, and the space above and below that. So the basic vision is that that historic building needs to be thoroughly and lovingly restored. And that the additions, the 1959 additions, we believe, and everybody we've consulted on this has agreed, although the only caveat I would offer is that we haven't hired an architect yet, so they haven't said it yet. But in the past, everybody who's looked at the 1959 additions, including some architects and including now several years worth of vestry members, has concluded that those structures have lived their lives and should not be restored. So the intention is to restore the 1926 structure and build new space that would include all manner of gathering space from, I hope, a hall that's big enough to hold at least as many people as the church holds, which is not the case with our current parish hall, that would include office space and meeting space of a variety of sizes. So I hope that answers the question about the scope. The scope, everything from Chancellor Street to Madison Lane and the alley to University Avenue, with the exception of the Booker House.
Okay, I've got two that have been sitting here for a long time that we can dispose of quickly, I believe. One of them is a question about what our rank of pipes is. And I was thinking it was somewhere between corporal and sergeant, but I thought you would be able to answer that better than me.
Deke, are you still out there? You want to put that in the chat? A rank is a set of pipes that corresponds to certain keys and stops on the organ. There, thank you, Deke. A rank is a set of pipes for each key. And now that I know that Deke is listening, and that he's not out to brunch someplace, Deke, can you tell us, does every rank have the same number of pipes, or is it different, or do different ranks have different numbers of pipes in them? How many pipes might be in a rank? I think he's typing. I hope he's typing. Not exactly the same, normally 61. So a manual means a keyboard. We have 4 manuals in the footboard. So that's essentially like 5 keyboards. I think I'm right about that. So anyway, a rank is 60 pipes, more or less, in our case. Thanks, Steve.
So the very first question, and I'm going to leave this one to you, Will, is will we have drive-by pancakes this Shrove Tuesday?
No.
I could add some.
I'm not going to try to polish up that answer. I'm just going to say no, and we'll look forward to pancakes next year.
I could add adjectives to that, but so then now this is a building related question again about, are there any plans at this point about parking?
Parking, there are no immediate plans that relate to, there are no immediate firm plans that relate to the physical space that we know as our parking lot. However, we are in ongoing conversations with the bank and the parking people over there about different arrangements there, and we have some flexibility with the Booker House lot that's related to that lease. So I'm sure those issues will come into play with the architects.
Okay,
I will clarify on an earlier building question where there was part of the question that you can probably guess the answer from the answer that I gave, but I wasn't explicit about things like boiler, heating, electrical. I think that the architects, including Jody Lehendro, who have looked at those systems, would tell you with some confidence that that all those systems are beyond their expected lifespan. So without getting into doing the architect's job for them, I would tell you that I fully expect all of that to be redone. We literally have not everywhere in the building, but in some places in the building, the wiring that is lighting the lights when you turn on the switch is 1926 wiring. And the boiler is getting so old that when you go to get parts for it, it's like walking into AutoZone and they want to know your make and model, and you say you have 53 Packard. So it's not. I fully expect that all those systems will be replaced and modernized.
and then a related question about, do we have plans for including renovation of the Canterbury House in this effort?
The Canterbury House, for the moment, is on a different timeline and not a part of this project. The sneak preview for that is that that would probably involve another master plan for that side of Chancellor Street that would take into account the whole question of what do we do with to think of our property on the other side of Chancellor Street as a whole and what we could do with it, because we own half that parking lot adjacent to the Canterbury House. So that is a question we have not asked to be addressed in this master plan.
Great. So here's a question again that I'm going to read for you verbatim. It would be fun to use breakout rooms after church as a virtual coffee hour, perhaps on the first Sunday of the month. I'm envisioning groups of 4 to 5 set up by Zoom for about 10 minutes. We could meet new folks and greet old friends.
Yes. So we have, as you probably know, we have upcoming a Lenten series to take place during that hour. That series will include some breakout rooms. What the questioner is describing is more informal than that. And the issue, I think I'm right about this, John might have to correct me, is that the way breakout rooms work is different between a webinar and a meeting. You can't have breakout rooms in a webinar. Is that right?
Yeah, breakout rooms
Yep.
are not possible in a webinar.
So we would need to, if we were going to do something like what was described, it would need to be on a totally separate link that would be a meeting. And we can certainly look for opportunities to do that. At this point, because we've got the adult formation time taking place right after the service at 11, it's not likely to be in the next few weeks during Lent, but I think after we get past Easter, that's something that could potentially happen on an occasional basis. One of the things we're talking about in the longer term is to try to flip the dynamic a little bit with adult formation so that that 11 o'clock hour, and I'm thinking now in real life, but certainly we could mimic this on Zoom, becomes a parish-wide time that doesn't necessarily belong to adult formation. In the past, it's often felt like that time belongs to adult formation, and we need permission from adult formation to use it for something else. And I think the staff and even the adult formation committee, I think, are largely agreed that that it would be great to have that time identified as parish time, and many of those dates be allocated to adult formation and others to other purposes. And the kind of fellowship that's described is certainly a worthy goal.
Now we have a question essentially about the are we planning to pursue more climate-friendly options in our renovation, rebuild, solar panels, garden roof, etc.?
Yes. So at the end of that question, you get into the kinds of details that I'll say again are for architects and designers. What I will say is that the building committee, who are charged with interviewing, evaluating, and choosing an architect for the master plan, have had really lively and enthusiastic discussion about how to exercise not just efficiency from the perspective of, let's see if we can save St. Paul's some money on the oil bill, but going really beyond that to another level of how can we exercise leadership? How can we as the church explore and implement a model of building that really represents leadership in the area of sustainability for the church at large and for the Charlottesville community. So without any technological details as far as solar versus some, we're not at that point, but we are. I think we have a strong consensus in that committee that sustainability and leadership in sustainability is a high priority for us.
Okay, at this point, Will, there are no more questions in the queue that I'm seeing. So.
Well, I have to say that this would be a lot more comfortable and a lot more fun if I could see you all, because I have no idea what kind of reaction I'm getting to anything I say, which is a little disconcerting. But I will say that it is just a pleasure and an honor to have so many of you sticking with us and logging on for this conversation. Look forward to doing it in person. And look forward to staying in touch about all these issues in the time being. So
now in the Q&A, you're getting some positive affirmation, and none of the people so far are related to you. So
okay. Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you to Margaret for opening the meeting with prayer. Thank you to the new vestry for your commitment. Thank you to everyone for your interest and commitment. I will see you on Ash Wednesday. I will see you next Sunday. Have a wonderful afternoon and God bless you.